Hey everyone, John Henry here, slingshotfutures.com. The end of crypto? Is this really the end? Or is this just the next Black Friday sale? So first things first, looking at the overall cryptocurrency market, it's obviously down. It's been down for a couple days now, going on actually about a month and a half now. This isn't anything new, but when you load up the news sources like CNBC or some of these other organizations who, in my opinion, are relatively new to this space and don't necessarily understand how crypto works, or they haven't had their feet wet for too long, or at least long enough to sit through a couple of these dips, you would think the world is crashing, right? It's the end of crypto, the bubble is popped, everything is falling apart, and XYZ, you name a problem, I'm sure it's listed in one of those news sources. Yes, we are in a dip. Yes, based off of the percentages, you could consider this a crash. When something is down 50-60% off of the highs, well, that is a pretty big dip when you're talking about an entire market. But is this the end of everything? Is this the bubble bursting or anything like that? Well, I don't necessarily think so. Are we at the bottom? Well, maybe, maybe not. There's a couple different things that we need to take a look at here before we start jumping in. But first of all, coin market cap. If we look at the market capitalization, we're sitting at $476 billion after a peak of $800 billion. And, well, the market dominance of Bitcoin is back on the rise a little bit, up to 36.6%. But for the most part, it is still very low. That said, we are getting a big dip. Everything is down. If you scroll down, you pretty much see all red numbers. There's an occasional green one in there, but for the most part, everything is getting smashed. So looking first of all at an example that I wanted to take a look at here, which is gold. Now gold, if we go back in time to around 1976 or so, we see that gold started off its futures debut with a big rally to the upside for a good chunk of, the 4-year period when it first started up. Very, very aggressive rally to the upside. And this probably looks pretty familiar to some of you crypto traders out there. This is a very parabolic run higher. Now, this parabolic run higher on gold was then met with a massive sell-off, shedding 70% of its value before eventually rallying back up towards new highs where we've been sitting right now. So with this big rally to the upside, this initial start off, this monster lift, notice the way that this all formed, right? We have a huge parabolic move, they form a lower high, and they start fading back down. We then have another attempt and it starts going range bound for a little while. And notably, these major swing lows that were put in ended up being huge levels of support until it finally turned back up. Not until 2006, 2007, mind you. It took a long time before it finally made its way back up there. But it did eventually make its way back up after shedding an almost 71% dip off of the highs. Now, where we're sitting at around 1,330, it's about twice that price. So if you compare that to Bitcoin, which is happening now, we can see, well, wait a minute, this looks really, really similar, doesn't it? We have a situation that right now we have a nice rally to the upside, gone parabolic, it pulls back, it makes a lower high, and now is dipping lower. We are testing a 40 to 50% buy zone and then maybe even a 60% buy zone. But if we use this market structure based on what we saw on gold, we might even have to expect something like a 70% pullback. A 70% pullback would put Bitcoin at around $6,000. That's a price point that I didn't think we would see in a very long time, but sure enough, that could be something that is staring us in the face. And if the gold example is any key of reference, this could go sideways for a long time. Most of the pullbacks so far have been about a month or two at a time. We could be looking at a multi-year lull in Bitcoin unless we really start catching a buy lift. Now, I'm definitely still in the long-term camp on Bitcoin. I'm not planning on going anywhere. I am looking for Bitcoin to be a very expensive coin, but this is something that we need to pay attention to. There are other examples of this exact same pattern formation that lead us to believe that, well, we might be in store for a little bit of a headache for the next possibly months to years before we start seeing a lift back up. Now, there are still estimates out there of Bitcoin going up to 100,000 and 50,000 and 200,000 this year. There are a lot of those types of estimates. And for the most part, we're comparing a weekly chart to a daily chart, right? So there is going to be a drastic difference in time that it's going to take for the market to recover if it's going to start following that type of scenario. Right now, I see this as a big sale, right? We are on sale right now on Bitcoin at about half off of the highs. We're up at around 20,000. We're now sitting at just under 10,000 and actually dipped all the way down to almost 8,000 area. Right around 9,000 into the 8,000s. Didn't quite make it yet, but again, don't let this big bear drop fool you. We might not be done on the bear side of things, just using that gold example as a reference. Now, of course, I don't want that. I would rather see Bitcoin back up to 20,000 by tomorrow, but unfortunately, well, we've got to follow the technicals, and the technicals right now are showing us if any other examples are to be used, we could be in store for another couple months of this at the very least, where we're just not really doing a whole lot of anything. Now, what do we do when a market is in a lull like that? What are we supposed to do when we're not going anywhere, right? Well, this is where long-term buying and short-term kind of scaling out, holding some. Buying, scaling out, holding some, and slowly building longer-term positions really starts coming in. This is the same thing that we were looking at doing on NEO. If we look at NEO versus BTC, if we look at the cryptocurrency side of things, of course, if we load up NEO, if you remember, we were talking about this area of just kind of perpetual back and forth for a very long period of time, and I believe it was actually on the NEO US dollar. There we go. We were talking about this back and forth for a really, really long time, for most of October and even half of November, where this is a situation where we know we have a strong company, we know we have a strong coin, now it's just a matter of waiting for it to actually break out. So what are we looking to do? Well, it's a very distinguished range, it's very obvious, so what is the game plan? Buy when it's low, sell out when it's high. But I'm not looking to sell everything, right? I'm looking to sell a good portion of it so you can make a little bit of cash on top of the trade itself, but we're looking to build a long-term portfolio. So you stack aside 10% on that trade, right? You leave it on the side and you just forget about it. You buy some more, leave 10% on the side. You buy some more, leave 10% on the side. You buy some more, leave 10% on the side, and by this point you have a 40 or 50% position that's just sitting there of free coins that you can now ride this rip higher, and that would have procured a monstrous lift. We're talking all the way up into nearly $200. That's a 10-time increase on basically free coins. Now, if you don't know what I mean by free coins, make sure to check out that video as well. It's posted here on the channel. But that's the main idea when we're in this lull. When nothing is going on, we're looking to buy when it's cheap, sell out of most of it, but keep a little bit of a nest egg on the side so that we have something that when it does go crazy and goes back up to the highs, got plenty on the table so that we can make a, hopefully another 10x return like we saw on NEO here. But that's the game plan when we're in this kind of lull, is just waiting, building, waiting some more, building some more, and just kind of holding off and playing it back and forth like that. If Bitcoin, which we haven't seen yet, but if it does start seeing this scenario where it goes sideways and then nothing really happens and then we go up and go back down again and then go back up and go back down again, that's going to be the scenario that we're looking for on Bitcoin as well. Now, as always, I have to say it, I am not a financial advisor. Always, always, always do your own research. It's very important to go through this and make sure that it fits your trading plan. Everything that I'm saying is just my opinion, and that's how I am approaching the market personally. Before you put any money on the table, make sure to get as much information as you can, and don't just take my word for it. Do all of your homework and due diligence that you can. Either way, though, I'm looking at this as a sale price, and I am going to be looking to potentially bounce it back and forth here. Buy in the dip, sell a little bit, buy in the dip, sell a little bit, and try to hang on to that nest egg for when it decides to go a little bit crazy back towards those $20,000 levels. Until then, we might just have to sit and wait and hold and do our normal cryptocurrency thing. Hopefully you found that useful. Hopefully you found it entertaining. It's something you can add to your tool belt. If you have any questions, as always, you can send me an email, jbrink@slingshotfutures.com. Until the next one, hold on, and we will see you then.